It started with a smirk and ended with silence. No gun was drawn. No voice was raised, just a badge laid gently on a wooden bench, heavier than any gavel in the room. The courtroom in Midland County, Texas, was never meant for theater. But on that damp Thursday morning, it played host to a performance soaked in ignorance, pride, and eventual reckoning. Judge Vernon Maddox, a white man in his early 60s, had seen his share of defendants shuffle in and out of his courtroom. But when Devin Rhodes, a tall, clean-shaven black man in a gray button-down shirt and dark jeans, was called forward for a traffic violation, Maddox didn't see a citizen. He saw a stereotype. "You lost, son?" the judge asked, voice dripping in condescension. There were murmurs in the gallery, the kind of low rumbles that precede a storm. Devin didn't flinch. He stepped forward, his posture military-grade upright, measured, deliberate. His hands remained visible, calm at his sides. His eyes didn't blink. "Just responding to my summons, Your Honor," Devin said, voice even. Maddox leaned back in his leather chair, tapping his pen against a stack of documents he hadn't read. "You folks from out of town never quite get how things work down here." Someone in the courtroom chuckled. The bailiff, a burly man with sunburned cheeks and a buzz cut, smirked. The court clerk kept typing like nothing was out of the ordinary. Because for them, it wasn't. But for Devin, it was everything. Every breath he took inside that paneled room was borrowed air. Every second was a trial before the trial. He had seen it before, on street corners, in airports, even in his own neighborhood, where neighbors clutched their purses tighter when he jogged past. Yet he said nothing. Maddox raised an eyebrow. "It says here you were clocked going 55 in a 35. Careless driving. That how y'all roll in D.C.?" There it was. A lazy insult packaged like a joke. Another chuckle from the back row. Another step closer to humiliation. Devin took a slow breath, not to keep calm, but to decide. Decide whether today was worth it. Whether today was the day he reminded the room who he really was. "Yes, sir. I work in D.C. That's where I'm assigned." "Assigned?" The judge perked up. "Oh, what's that?" "Government, man." The sarcasm was thick. He didn't expect an answer. But Devin gave him one anyway. "I'm with the U.S. Secret Service." Silence. Not the respectful kind. Did he just say that kind? Maddox blinked. He chuckled, more to himself than anyone else. "You saying you protect the president?" "I've been part of several protective details," Devin replied. "Right," Maddox scoffed. "And I'm Elvis Presley." Devin reached into his back pocket. Careful, slow. The bailiff tensed. The judge leaned forward. Devin pulled out a black leather wallet, opened it, and laid it flat on the bench. The gold badge glinted beneath the courtroom lights. On one side, the eagle crest of the U.S. Secret Service. On the other, his federal ID. Official. Undeniable. Maddox stared. His lips moved, but no sound came out. The gallery was dead quiet. "I was in Texas visiting my mother for her birthday," Devin said. "A local officer pulled me over. I gave him my license. Didn't mention who I was. Thought I'd handle the ticket like any other citizen." The judge looked down, not at the badge, his own reflection in the polished wood of the bench. The moment hung in the air like a held breath. "I assume the ticket was written based on radar?" Devin asked. "Because I have a dash cam and GPS data showing I was going 36. Happy to present it." Maddox waved a shaky hand. "That won't be necessary." Devin picked up his badge and returned it to his pocket. "Respectfully, Your Honor, I think it is." The clerk stopped typing. The bailiff looked away. Someone in the gallery shifted uncomfortably. A silence had descended, but it wasn't peaceful. It was acidic. Devin continued, not raising his voice, not changing his tone. "Because what happened here today isn't about a traffic ticket. It's about what you assumed when you saw me walk in. About the joke you made, and who you thought would laugh. It's about dignity, mine and yours." The judge swallowed. The smirk was gone. "I'll submit my motion to dismiss," Devin concluded. "But I won't forget this exchange." He turned and walked out. No applause, no confrontation, just a man leaving a courtroom lighter than he entered, though carrying the same weight he always had. Behind him, Maddox sat frozen, a fossil of man caught in the sediment of his own prejudice. Outside, the sky was gray, but brighter than the courtroom. Devin stood on the courthouse steps, looking out at the street. The Texas wind blew warm across his face. He didn't smile. He didn't need to, because in a room built to judge others, he had turned the mirror, and no one had the courage to look away. That day, he didn't just win a case. He exposed one. Outside the courthouse, Devin's phone buzzed in his pocket, but he didn't check it right away. He needed a secondo breathe to absorb what had just happened. He had faced down worse. Hostile crowds overseas, assassination threats, sleepless nights guarding dignitaries who didn't know his name. But somehow, standing in that wood-paneled room of warped justice, surrounded by polite hatred and lazy assumptions, had drained him more than any operation ever had. He finally glanced at the screen. Call from Agent Maynard. Devin answered, his voice steady. "Yes, sir." "You all right?" came the gruff but familiar voice of Special Agent in Charge Ellis Maynard. "Got the ping you activated your badge in a civilian court." "I'm fine," Devin replied. "Just a local judge who thought I was someone else." There was a pause on the other end. "Let me guess," Maynard said dryly. "He thought you were someone who doesn't wear a badge." Devin said nothing. "God damn it, Devin. You didn't have to flash it. We could have squashed this through DOJ. I didn't flash it to get out of trouble. I flashed it to stop being treated like a problem." There was another pause, this time longer. Then Maynard's voice softened. "You coming back to D.C. soon?" "Sunday. I've got 2 more days with my mom." "All right. I'll see you Monday." Devin ended the call and slipped the phone into his pocket. His fingers lingered over the badge wallet for a moment, still warm from the spotlight it had just endured. Then he walked down the courthouse steps into the parking lot and toward his rental car. As he unlocked the door, a voice called out behind him. "Hey!" Devin turned. It was the bailiff Jake, or at least that's what the small brass nameplate on his uniform had said. The man jogged up, his face flushed, not from exertion, but embarrassment. "Listen," Jake began, his hand scratching the back of his neck. "I just wanted to say, that was unexpected in there." Devin raised an eyebrow. "Which part?" Jake hesitated. "The badge. The whole thing. I didn't know. I mean, you didn't look like." Devin let that word dangle. "Like what?" Jake's lips parted, but no answer came. Eventually, he just shook his head. "Never mind. Just respect, man. That was something." Devin didn't smile, but he nodded. "Thanks." He got in the car, started the engine, and pulled away. As the courthouse disappeared in the rearview mirror, so did the performance of ignorance. But the memory clung like humidity. By the time he arrived at his mother's housea, small brick bungalow in East Midland, the sun had crested the roof. Ms. Florence Rhodes, a retired high school English teacher, opened the door before Devin even knocked. She always knew when he was coming. "There's my boy," she said, wrapping her arms around him. He buried his face in her shoulder for just a second, just long enough to reset. "You hungry?" she asked, stepping back to examine him like she hadn't just seen him yesterday. "Always." Inside, the scent of collard greens and cornbread wrapped around him like a childhood blanket. The living room hadn't changed in 20 years. Same floral couch, same lace curtains, same bookshelf filled with Baldwin, Angelou, and Morrison. His mother's holy trinity. At the kitchen table, he finally spoke. "I had court this morning." Florence paused at the stove. "You fight it." "Yeah." She turned, a bowl in her hands. And he met her eyes. I won, but it was never about the ticket. Her lips pursed. It never is. They ate in silence for a while. Then she said, almost absently, "You're too calm, Devin. Too quiet. You carry it all inside." "I have to." "No, baby. You choose to. That's different." Devin looked down at his plate. The fork trembled slightly in his hand. He hadn't noticed it until now. "Mom," he said after a beat, "how did you survive it? Teaching all those years in schools where kids spit on your desk and parents question your credentials." She chuckled not bitterly, but deeply. "By never letting them shrink me," she said. "They wanted me to feel small." "Istut taller." He nodded. That night, Devin lay on his childhood bed, staring at the ceiling fan. He couldn't sleep, not because of the judge, not even because of the badge, but because of what came after. He wasn't just a black man in America. He was a symbol no what least for the people in that courtroom. The judge had mocked him to feed a system, and that system had cracked just a little when the truth was laid bare. But cracks weren't collapse. He needed to do more than reveal the hypocrisy. He needed to dismantle it. The next morning, Devin drove across town to the Midland Police Department. The building was squat and square, more functional than friendly. Inside, he was greeted with curious glances, some recognizing, some suspicious. He approached the front desk. "I'd like to speak to the officer who wrote me a traffic ticket earlier this week." Officer Travis Wilkes. The receptionist, a young Latina woman with sharp eyes, nodded. "Let me check." 10 minutes later, Officer Wilkes emerged from the hallway. Late 30s, reddish-blonde buzz cut, tall. His expression was unreadable. "You the one from court yesterday?" he asked. Devin nodded. "Mind talking?" They stepped into a side room. Devin didn't sit. Neither did Wilkes. "I'm not here to file a complaint," Devin began. "But I need to understand why you pulled me over." Wilkes shrugged. "You were going fast." "I was going 36 in a 35. That's on record." Wilkes didn't reply. Devin leaned in, his voice low but firm. "Was it the car? The color of my skin? What was it that told you I didn't belong?" Wilkes looked down, then up. "You want the truth?" "Yes." Wilkes exhaled. "It's automatic. You see a black man in a nice car in that neighborhood, your brain goes somewhere. Training doesn't undo it. You react. You assume. Sometimes you're right. Sometimes, like now, you're dead wrong." There was honesty. Ugly, raw, unpolished. Devin nodded slowly. "Then fix it." Wilkes looked up, surprised. "How?" "Train differently. Speak up. Change who you are before you put on that badge every day." Wilkes hesitated. Then he said, "I'll try." It wasn't an apology. It wasn't redemption. But it was a start. By the time Devin left the station, his heart was heavier but not with anger. With resolve. 2 days later, back in D.C., Devin stood in a briefing room surrounded by agents in suits and earpieces. His role was to debrief after a minor incident involving a visiting diplomat. But his mind wandered. After the meeting, he approached Maynard. "I want to request something." Maynard raised an eyebrow. "New assignment?" "No, a new initiative." He laid out the idea. A federal task force to educate local departments on racial bias recognition, with Secret Service volunteers participating in civilian outreach efforts nationwide. Maynard didn't laugh. He didn't reject it. He said, "Write it up." That night, Devin stayed late at the office, typing until his fingers ached. He didn't know if it would get approved. He didn't care. What mattered was that something was moving. A seed had been planted. And in a courtroom far from where policies were made, a judge now sat quieter during sessions, more measured in tone. He hadn't changed, not fully. But sometimes silence is the sound of a mind starting to wake up. Devin never returned to Midland County Court. He didn't have to. He'd already left his fingerprint one they couldn't dust off. 3 weeks had passed. The courtroom incident in Midland had begun to make quiet ripples online. Someone in the gallery had discreetly recorded the moment Devin laid his badge on the bench. It wasn't supposed to be filmed, but the clip 35 seconds long was now circulating on social media. No names, no faces clearly shown. Just a sharp voice, a stunned silence, and a golden badge flashing like truth in the light. The clip didn't go viral in the usual sense. No hashtags trended. No headlines blared. But it found its way into inboxes. Officers, judges, lawyers, people who worked behind wood-paneled facades and steel badge numbers share it quietly. Some passed it to colleagues. Some deleted it. Some sat with it uncomfortably. Devin never mentioned the video to anyone, but he knew it had spread when he received a message from a contact he hadn't spoken to in over a decade. It came from Jamal Stokes. Jamal had been his best friend at the University of Maryland back before Devin ever imagined joining the Secret Service. Back then, they were both political science majors, both hungry for change, but they'd chosen different roads. Devin had gone federal. Jamal had stayed grassroots. The message was short. Saw the video. About time someone brought the courtroom to school. You free this week? They met that Friday at a coffee shop in Southeast D.C., just a few blocks from where Jamal now ran a nonprofit called Ground Level. The walls were plastered with murals of civil rights leaders, and every table held the kind of conversation that could change neighborhoods. Jamal hugged him hard. Still got that posture like you're guarding a senator, he said. Devin smiled. Still got that beard like you teach African history out of your trunk. They sat, coffee in hand. Words came easy. Jamal leaned in. What happened in Texas, that wasn't just a moment, man. That was a spotlight. You ever think about stepping out from behind the badge and speaking up? Devin hesitated. I can't do press. I still have clearances. I'm not talking about press, Jamal said. I'm talking about kids. Schools. Community halls. You walk into a room and show that badge, people listen. Especially young brothers who've only seen that kind of power used on them, not for them. Devin stared into his cup. I'm not sure I'm ready to be that visible. You already are. They were quiet for a minute. Then Devin said, what would that look like? Come with me Monday. We're doing a workshop at Dunbar High. No press. Just stories. Devin agreed. When he walked into the school gym 3 days later, it felt like another world. Rows of folding chairs filled with teenagers, most of them black or brown, slouched, distracted, or sizing him up. Devin wore no suit, no earpiece, just jeans and a collared shirt. The badge stayed in his pocket. Jamal took the mic first, introducing Devin as a protector of people at the highest level of this government and someone who got treated like a criminal because of how he looks. Devin took the stage. He didn't open with a courtroom story. He opened with a question. How many of you, he asked, have ever been stopped by police for something you didn't do? Hands went up, hesitant, then confident. Almost the entire room. Devin nodded. I'm not here to tell you that your fear is wrong. I'm here to tell you it's real, and that I carry it too, even with a badge. They listened, not just politely but fully. Their bodies shifted forward, their arms uncrossed. Devin spoke for 15 minutes, then opened the floor. A boy in the back, no older than 16, raised his hand. You ever get scared? He asked. Devin nodded. Every time someone looks at me and sees threat before they see me. The boy squinted. Devin stepped closer to the edge of the stage. Because I want to prove that protection doesn't have to come from fear. It can come from purpose. The room was silent. Later, as they packed up, Jamal slapped him on the shoulder. You just lit a fire. Devin smiled. You just drafted me. Over the next month, he balanced his duties in the Secret Service with these visits, small gatherings in community centers, school libraries, church basements. Always quiet, always off the record. He spoke not just about being a black agent, but about resilience, about pride, about the complicated loyalty of serving a country that didn't always serve you back. And slowly, his name began to surface in conversations that mattered. A councilman in Houston invited him to advise on police de-escalation training. A journalist from The Atlantic requested an anonymous interview. A retired judge reached out with a letter. Your story reminds me of every time I looked away when I should have spoken up. Thank you for not looking away. But not all responses were supportive. One day, Devin received a letter. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper printed in bold font. Stay in your lane. Attached was a photo of his child at home. He stared at the picture for a long time. Then he folded it and put it away. The next morning, he requested a security review for his mother's house and arranged for temporary surveillance. He didn't tell Florence. There was no point in worrying her. That evening, as he sat in his apartment reviewing reports, the intercom buzzed. Mr. Rhodes, there's a visitor here for you. Says it's urgent. He pressed the button. Name. He won't give one. Just says you'll recognize him. Suspicious, Devin stood, checked his weapon holstered at the small of his back, and walked to the lobby. The man waiting there was older, gray suit, pale, and instantly familiar. It was Judge Vernon Maddox. They stared at each other. Can I come up? Maddox asked. No. The judge nodded. Then I'll speak here. Devin crossed his arms. You've got 1 minute. Maddox swallowed. I've been getting calls. From the ethics board. From civil rights attorneys. They've asked for transcripts. Footage. You afraid? I'm reflecting. Devin's silence said everything. I just wanted to say, don't, Devin cut in. Don't apologize here. Apologize there. In court. On record. Maddox's face fell. I came to say I'm stepping down. Devin blinked. The judge looked tired. Older than he had in court. 32 years on the bench. Thought I was untouchable. You reminded me that I wasn't. That no one should be. He turned to leave. Before he reached the door, Devin spoke. Why now? Maddox paused. Because I watched that video 50 times. And every time, I hated myself more. He left without another word. Devin stood in the quiet lobby, the echo of footsteps disappearing into the night. He didn't feel victorious. He felt human. He walked back upstairs, sat at his desk, and finally did what he'd been avoiding for weeks. He opened a blank document, titled it, One Badge, Two Americas, and he began to write. Not a resignation. A book, not about the badge, but about what it meant to wear one while being seen as a threat. About the intersections of duty and dignity. About power and the people left behind by it. He wrote until the sky turned light. Outside, the world spun forward. Inside, Devin wrote his story not to make noise, but to make sense. Because the real reckoning wasn't in the courtroom. It was in the hearts of every man who had ever judged before understanding. And the truth once spoken was no longer his to carry alone. Devin's manuscript took shape in the quiet hours between assignments, school visits, and midnight reflections. He worked on it the way a field agent dismantles a bomb slowly, carefully, with full knowledge that what he was uncovering could explode in his face. The book wasn't a memoir. It was a mirror held up to a system and to himself. In it, he examined every moment that had trained him to hold his breath when sirens wailed behind him, to keep his hands in sight, to smile when insulted. He wrote about surviving elite federal training while being asked if he was diversity hire. He detailed guarding senators who had voted against civil rights legislation. He wrote about walking through metal detectors while white civilians breezed past. But he also wrote about his father, a former military man who taught him discipline with love, about his mother who quoted Maya Angelou at the dinner table, and about the quiet victories of dignity he'd witnessed in everyday Black American janitors who sang freedom songs under their breath, barbers who quoted the Constitution better than politicians, and teachers who refused to let brilliance go unnoticed in black children. When he finally sent the draft to his friend Jamal, it came with a single-line message. It's not a book about being a victim. It's a book about not letting the world define me. Jamal read it in a weekend and responded, "The world needs this. Now more than ever." The publishing process moved faster than Devin expected. Jamal connected him with a small, black-owned press in Baltimore, run by a woman named Ava Caldwell who, after reading 3 chapters, called Devin personally. "Your story doesn't scream," she said. "It burns. I want to help you set the fire." They worked together through edits, title discussions, and design. The final title stayed, "One Badge, Two Americas." On the cover, Ava insisted they include the badge not as a symbol of power, but of burden. Before the official release, Ava set up a modest book tour just a few cities: Baltimore, Atlanta, Chicago, Houston, and finally Dallas. It was in Dallas where everything changed. The event was held in a community center downtown. It was modest, attended by about 120 people, mostly educators, students, local activists, and a few off-duty officers who sat quietly in the back. Devin spoke from a small podium. He wasn't flashy. He read from the chapter describing the courtroom in Midland, the way the judge had smirked, the way the gallery had laughed, the way the silence had fallen when the badge appeared. When he finished, there was no applause, just silence, and then a single voice. "Can I speak?" A woman stood from the third row. Devin didn't recognize her at first. Mid-50s, blazer, glasses, her hair pulled back. Then she said her name, Vanessa Maddox, the judge's wife. She walked forward slowly. Devin tensed, unsure what to expect. "I came here tonight because my husband asked me to," she said. "He didn't have the courage to come himself." A few murmurs rose from the crowd. Vanessa continued, "After that day in court, my husband changed. Not overnight, not easily, but something in him broke, and maybe that's the best thing that ever happened to him." She reached in her bag and pulled out a folded letter. "He wrote this to you, asked me to deliver it in person." She handed it to Devin. He didn't open it right away. Vanessa stepped back to the mic. "My son is studying criminal justice," she said. "I brought him with me tonight because I want him to see what justice should look like." She looked at Devin, eyes filled with something between apology and admiration. "Thank you for holding up the mirror," she said, "even when it hurt." This time the crowd applauded. After the event, Devin finally read the letter. It was handwritten, the ink slightly smudged. "Mr. Rhodes, I've been many things in my life: a soldier, a husband, a father, and a judge. But I have rarely been a listener. That changed the day you stood in my courtroom. I watched the video not because it embarrassed me, but because it revealed me. And I didn't like what I saw. I've submitted my resignation. I've enrolled in cultural competency training through the Texas bar. It's not enough. It never will be. But it's a start. Thank you for forcing me to see myself. Vern Maddox." Devin folded the letter and placed it gently inside his jacket. On the flight back to D.C., he watched the clouds roll past the window and thought about change, not the dramatic kind that politicians promise, but the slow, grinding kind that starts in hearts and moves through systems like roots cracking pavement. When he landed, there was a voicemail waiting for him. It was from Director Reynolds of the Secret Service. "Agent Rhodes, I've read your book, so I have a lot of people. I won't pretend it was easy reading, but I wanted you to know something. Your message is being heard, and I'd like to meet with you next week. We're considering creating a new internal role equity and inclusion liaison, and I think you're the one to build it." Devin sat motionless in the terminal, his phone still in his hand. That night, he returned to his apartment and found a package waiting. No name, no return address. Inside was a frame. In it, a screenshot of him standing in the Midland courtroom arm outstretched, badge displayed. Below it, a quote. True power is when you can make others see truth without raising your voice. He didn't know who sent it, but he hung it on the wall above his writing desk. Months passed. One badge, Two Americas became a sleeper bestseller. Not viral, but steady passed hand to hand in classrooms, precincts, and book clubs across the country. Universities invited Devin to guest lecture. A Netflix documentary crew reached out. He declined. He wasn't interested in fame, just in resonance. Florence Rhodes got a copy of the book before anyone else. She kept it on her living room table and made sure every guest knew. My son didn't just write something. He lived something. Devin, now officially appointed as the agency's first equity and inclusion liaison, began designing workshops, speaking to new recruits, and auditing policies that had never before been questioned. He also continued visiting schools. One day, after speaking at a middle school in Anacostia, a young boy approached him, barely 12, skin the color of polished mahogany, eyes sharp as glass. "Are you really in the Secret Service?" Devin crouched to his level. "I am." The boy looked skeptical. "But you don't look like the ones on TV." Devin smiled. "Maybe TV needs to catch up." The boy considered that. Then he asked, "You think I could be one too?" Devin didn't hesitate. "Absolutely." And as he watched the boy walk away, chest a little higher, steps a little firmer, he realized something. He hadn't just changed the narrative. He had given others permission to write their own. Back in his office, surrounded by files, training modules, and the noise of a government machine trying to evolve, Devin still kept that badge. Not because he needed it, but because of what it reminded him. That visibility is power. That truth is louder than bias. And that justice, real justice, is not a moment. It is a mission. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.